Hello and welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. My name is Pete, and welcome back to another edition of Legacy Reviews, guys. If you've been here before, you know the deal. If you haven't been here, check out the playlist for some old episodes. We're going to jump into it this week with episode 21 of Duel Monsters kicking us off. I'll be right back. Alright guys, kicking us off here this week, Dragon, Black Skull Dragon. I think we could kind of presume where this is going. We are picking up in the second part of the duel against the Labyrinth brothers, where Jinochi and Yugi are trying to make their way to kind of Pegasus's castle, get enough star chips, and ultimately escape the caverns that the entire group is trapped in. And so from the title of the episode, you knew where that was going, right? You know there was going to be some form of polymerization going on, which it kind of sinks a little bit that is spoiled in the title, and maybe I shouldn't read them beforehand. But you knew that was going to be the trump card. I just didn't know how it would play out. And actually, this was a super enjoyable episode of Duel Monsters. And not to say that I don't normally enjoy them, but it is harder sometimes getting used to the older style of the show. If you've been listening to these Legacy reviews, you know my opinion on that. And so it was nice to see a duel that I thought was very back and forth. Classic Yugi outsmarting people, even at the end I thought was very back and forth. Classic Yugi outsmarting people, even at the end of this duel, and some great, as there always is, Kaiba antic moments. There's a GIF I'm going to request from you guys when we get to that part of the review. But man, yeah, so we kick right off with Gate Guardian was the big trump card that was, summoned by the Labyrinth brothers last episode. We pick up with trying to defeat them. Flame Swordsman looks like he is done, and Yugi uses, at the time, it was not an OG kind of trap card, but now it is a spell card, trap card in Mirror Force. They're actually, Gate Guardian's able to kind of, get out of the way of the attack. They claim it's invincible, the Labyrinth brothers, and it's just a back and forth cat and mouse game where Jinochi's he's made some key moves in this duel. He really has, especially in the first part of this two-parter. But in this one, this is really all Yugi's show, as you would expect, and he's kind of just a passenger to the ride that Yuki is showing all of them, and is kind of the lesson in dueling that he is giving. So after that little moment there, we cut to the caverns where Kaiba is still looking for Mokuba. All of Pegasus's drones, they're basically the security card losers, are looking for him, and they do the stupid thing where two of them split off to go protect Mokuba in his cell, and two of them continue to look for Kaiba. That's exactly what Kaiba was looking for. As soon as I was watching the episode, I was like, he's literally looking for a moment like that, and he'll just follow the other two guys right back to the cell. Easy peasy. Easy work he's doing down there. So, dumb classic security grunt work going on here in Pegasus's castle. But Yugi, when we come back to the duel, he comes up with the idea that, hey, the Gate Guardian is made up of obviously 3 parts that are all different elements. Why don't we attack piece by piece if we can? And that gives us a higher probability to ultimately defeat Gate Guardian, get out of the labyrinth, and win this duel and survive. And it goes back and forth where, you have these classic, once again, duel monster moments where Gate Guardian attacks, it then floods the labyrinth, so Summon Skull gets summoned onto the field by Yugi, and he's able to electrocute the water to attack the monster, and it looks like it's going to be a waste of time at first, that the defenses, you're not going to be able to get through on Gate Guardian, and Yugi's able to turn it around, get rid of the bottom piece of Gate Guardian, and severely weaken the prospects of the Labyrinth brothers. And he did that as well. He used Spellbinding Circle, which is another OG card that I remember recognizing early on from the game when I had some trading cards way back. And he blocks off the middle piece of Gate Guardian, which, lowers the attack and prevents it from doing anything. And he was able to wipe out the bottom section, the water section, which was a great move. And what a great moment. So Jinochi, right after that, he summons, Red Eye's Black Dragon. Summon Skull's already on the field. They fuse it together, get Black Skull Dragon. Awesome, guys. One of my favorite summonings so far here in Duel Monsters. The card looks great, and then it comes up with the, he can't fly through, onto the field because they're in a labyrinth. So that was the little trick trump kind of thing of this episode, trump card moment of this episode, of just classic Duel Monster rules here early on in Duelist Kingdom. But still a powerful card that you knew, because it was the title of the episode, you knew it had to come into severe play. The Labyrinth brothers end up using a card called Ryoku, and that allows them to half, actually, Jinochi and Yuki's life points and add it to Gate Guardian. So a really powerful card. Yuki recognized it as kind of a legacy card. He called it as well during the duel, and they weren't allowed to attack that turn, but they're like, yeah, well, next turn, you guys are basically done. There's no way, even if you let Dark Magician out of the Labyrinth, he is nowhere near the attack points to even attack Gate Guardian, never mind a boosted Gate Guardian, even if there's only 2 parts. What is really the ultimate goal here? You knew Yuki had to have something up his sleeve, and we see that, because he uses Monster Reborn, and we're like, okay, well, through him, like, in his graveyard last episode, what did he have? What could he have in Jonochi's? I don't know. You guys can tell me down below. Can he go into his partner's graveyard and use Monster Reborn? I don't know exactly how that works. But let's say it's only his graveyard. I'm like, what could he bring back? What could he bring back? And he brings back the other piece of Gate Guardian, which I don't know. Does it work like that? Like, can you use Monster Reborn to use monsters in an opponent's graveyard? I didn't think it worked like that. Maybe it does. I mean, I'm very ignorant on the TCG, so you guys can educate me down below. But that was something I didn't expect, and I was able to negate the effect of Gate Guardian, protect yourself with the kind of the warder barrier. The Labyrinth Brothers end up getting around that later because they go after ultimately their bottom piece of Gate Guardian. It's only able to use that defense reflection once. So when both brothers attack back to back, one brother attacks. So when both brothers attack back to back, one brother attacks, it defends itself, and then they're able to wipe it out the next time. So it was pretty smart strategy on that part. So how are, Yugi and Jonochi going to combat it? Well, Jonochi draws a pretty interesting card. It's like Copycat, so he changes to the Ryoku, which allows the Labyrinth Brothers to now have their life points halved and added to Black Skull Dragon, which looked kind of pointless for a second. I mean, yeah, it's cool to show the animation of him beefing up to 4,000 attack points, but what's the point if he still has to travel all the way through the Labyrinth and Dark Magician is about to get wiped out at the end? And Yugi even seems surprised by that move by Jonochi, and I'm wondering, okay, so like, where is this going to turn on its head? And now Yugi pulls out the spell card, Monster Replace, and I go, well, there you go. They're going to switch positions, Dark Magician, Black Magician, and Black Skull Dragon, and now you have a monster attack. Now you have a weakened Gate Guardian. I know it was a little boosted up, but now it doesn't have its bottom piece to defend anything, to block any attacks. Yugi obviously used that to his advantage early on to survive in this duel, and it was game, set, match. Great to watch kind of the meteor or comet shot, whatever he called it, wipe out both Labyrinth Brothers at once, because even if one lost, they were done. Wiped out both of them because it destroyed both the parts left of Gate Guardian, which were summoned separately by each brother. But I knew it wasn't over, and the crew thought it was over, but remember they said at the beginning of the duel last episode that they would not only have to get through, win the duel, but then they would have to guess the proper door at the end of the duel if they happened to win. So the Labyrinth Brothers, are laughing about that, and we cut back to Kaiba and Mokuba, and this is the part that I want you guys to GIF. I want you to send me these GIFs on Twitter. Dylan will probably put it down below. Kaiba is Batman, okay? He is literally jumps out of the ceiling like he's Batman from nowhere, karate chops 2 guys, and then fights Mokuba. I mean, it's just, you can't make it up with this guy, and I really love him. And I love the little bond moment they had, Mokuba declaring that, he's given nothing up. But you knew this was all for naught, and Pegasus comes strolling down into his dungeon, going, oh, bravo, what a touching reunion. You know that he's not going to let this happen, and he basically says to Kaiba, like, yeah, oh, you think you're not going to give up Kaiba Corporation? Yeah, we'll see. Uses the Millennium Eye. He cards Mokuba, basically. He takes his soul, and now he says, well, hey, you're not going to duel against me first. You're going to end up dueling against Yugi, which I imagine is going to be the next episode. How does that play out? If Yuki wins, which, I mean, you would expect him to win, he's the protagonist, but does that mean that Mokuba is doomed at that point? So that's going to be very fascinating for that duel going forward, which I assume is ultimately next week. We did the quick cut back to the Labyrinth Brother duel going forward, which I assume is ultimately next week. We did the quick cut back to the Labyrinth Brothers, and Yugi pulls like a weird coin trick, like he's, one of those street performer entertainers, and he tricks the Labyrinth Brothers into guessing the right door. They have 10 star chips each, him and Jonochi. They guess the right door, so they're out of the caverns. They can get to Pegasus's castle, and now what awaits them is Kaiba, or what awaits Yugi is Kaiba. So guys, let me know what you thought of this episode, the second parter of the Labyrinth Brothers duel, down below. I would love to hear your thoughts, and what do you think is going to happen for next week? Obviously, as always, no spoilers, because I don't want to know, because I do read the comments, but I would love to talk to you guys down below. I'm going to switch over to GX, episode 21. I'll be right back. Alright guys, welcome back to the GX side of the review. This is episode 21 of GX, Sealed Fusion, Judai versus Misawa, part 1. And welcome back to my favorite part of the week. It's kind of getting to that with favorite part of the week. It's kind of getting to that with GX, because I'm like, you know what? What ridiculous thing can happen this week? And that's what I was looking forward to. And we got a little bit of it. It wasn't as kooky as an episode as normally, but we get that kind of shop owner lady on the island. She's unloading boxes, or having her crew unload boxes from the docks, and all of a sudden she has some disturbance, some kind of feeling going on in the water, and there's this random, seemingly adult man snorkeling to the island and is happy to be here. He ends up putting on like a red Cypher outfit and tries to blend in as a student, and the whole joke, the whole episode, Kugasaki, I think his name is, or something like that, is that he looks way older than an actual student, because he's a grown man that's blending in with the students. But whatever, we'll talk more about that as we go forward to the main crux of the episode. And there's a boardroom meeting between the top officials of all the 3 dorms, between the president of the Duel Academy. Kronos is there, obviously. Even Rio is there, and they're talking about, well, who's going to be the representative to go against the other Duel Academy this year. Rio was the last year or two or so, and the president points out that, hey, an actual first year at the other school is being the representative. I think it would be good for us to have a first year, which perfectly sets up Judai. And Rio is actually the one that suggests Judai, to Kronos' dismay. He hates that, and he puts up Misawa, where they're kind of friends, to duel for the right to see who's the representative of the school. Everyone agrees, and Kronos is just hell-bent on making sure that Misawa is the one to win. They announce it in class, and Judai is very excited. They're both, him and Misawa are both very excited to go against each other again, because Misawa, remember, was saying he was making a deck this time, once again, to study Judai and to combat his skills and ultimately end up defeating him. And you know the guy's an intellect above all. You know he's a student of the game, and that he's going to do his damnedest to beat Judai. So Judai actually goes back to the dorm, and, you know, he kind of fine-tunes his deck a little bit. But before that, they run in to the Kunisaki guy that's dressed in the red Cypher outfit. No one will talk to him. No one at Obelisk Blue, no one at Rye Yellow, and that's because you're the bottom of the totem pole. And classic Judai fashion, he invites him out to like lunch or dinner. He invites him back to the dorm. They're hanging out, and the guy is not really good at keeping a low profile and staying secretive with his actual identity. He reveals it. He doesn't say what his actual motives are of what he wants to do. But he does say that clearly we know as the audience, and even as the students there, that there's something up with this guy and what he is doing. He asks about the ghost dorms of that missing dorm going on. So we were ultimately Asuka lost her brother, where we were earlier in the season, where Judai went against that mercenary when Asuka was locked in that coffin sarcophagus. And there's this weird moment that happens where he picks up the skyscraper card of Judai's, and it looks like he's dueling in the shot, and it doesn't look like a great memory of what's going on. And then he looks defeated, and he kind of is like horrified, and he claims that he doesn't like dueling. He thinks it's a waste of time, but that implies that he was a duelist at some point. So I'm wondering what the old man, quote-unquote's backstory is there. But he reveals himself to the audience in the sense that he seems to be some kind of journalist, photographer. He's trying to get a scoop of the ghost dorm. He talks a little bit to Asuka later on, offends her a little bit. And he has this weird moment later in the episode where he's researching, breaking into the computers, trying to break in via, you know, a password of trying to crack the system. But he has this weird moment of being kind of magnetically attracted to the duel that Judai and Misawa are later taking place. Like, he's very fascinated. He even says that he's fired up. So I assume it's going to be another one-off, you know, 2-episode kind of character thing, but we'll see where it goes with Kunisaki and what that whole storyline is about. We cut back to the main storyline, and it's, Misawa and Judai, that's where we're going, and it's Misawa in the dorm room analyzing Judai's deck. And basically he's talking about, hey, you could use Clayman here, you can use Bursternix, you can use all these cards that Judai always fuses together. They're a lethal combination. And he thinks, well, how do I isolate and attack one of these monsters so he can't fuse them? And I'm saying the whole time, the thing that it has in common here is fusion, is polymerization. Do not let him fuse his monsters, and his deck, his hero deck, is significantly weaker. And he realizes, I think, that in that moment, he's like, oh, well, it would be difficult to kind of attack one card or the other, because that relies on it coming out and you having the perfect card to go back at it. What's the one card that I can use to trump all of it? And he realizes it, and then we cut away from it. It ends up, that we're right, but we'll get to that. So when we get to the duel, actually, of Judai and Misawa, it's pretty good. It goes back and forth. Misawa's down a little bit. Kronos is freaking out. The president is actually talking to our instructor of Cypher Red, the guy, I always forget his name, the one with the cat pharaoh. He's there, and he's talking about, the people in the students in dorm Red are actually really good this year, right? And he was like, yeah, they are. And this guy's the top of the top in Judai, is what he's saying to the president. And that's demonstrated throughout. And I knew that Misawa not only had something up his sleeve of his trump card, I didn't know if we were going to get that in this part or the next part. I kind of thought it'd be the next part. But when he has his monsters out there, where he has the very element kind of base periodic table and carbon and all this stuff, he keeps sacrificing them to get them to the graveyard. And I'm like, well, he's got to be building something in there. Is it going to be his ace that I think we last saw against Manjome? And it was. He brings out Water Dragon, 2800 attack, and that forces, which is exactly what Misawa wanted to do, that forces Judai to attempt a polymerization, because he needs to get a powerful monster of his hero deck onto the field. And as all this is going on, Asuka and Ryo are kind of up in the stands, standing over the balcony, much like they were in episode 1, and they're discussing them back and forth. And Asuka's saying how Judai has the flow of the game down, is able to adjust, and Ryo is admiring Misawa's intellect. And it seems, just like everyone else, that Asuka is very attracted to just this magnetism personality that Judai has to inspire people. Heido, even earlier in the episode, talked about that. It's his defining trait so far through the first 21 episodes, and it really makes him by far, for me, the most interesting character in the show. I mean, he's really the only guy that keeps these reviews going for me for GX here early on. And when Judai attempts, though, to fusion summon, that's when Misawa pulls out the card that he has been working on. It's exactly to defend against polymerization. It's exactly what I said he should do. Judai is completely flabbergasted, completely thrown off his game. It's a trap card called Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell, which not only allows him to not use polymerization in that moment, he's able to discard one of his spell cards, and he can choose destroying another spell card, another card. But Judai cannot use polymerization the entire rest of the duel. It's completely shut off. So a very powerful move. And you know what? I like this because now it puts Judai into a box. It puts him into a box that we have not seen that much, where now he has to get around not being able to fusion summon, which is really, you could argue, the strong point, and at the same time the weakest point of his dueling style and his deck as it is currently constructed, because he relies so much on that. And now we're highlighting that, hey, if we take that away, what happens? So guys, that's my thoughts here on GX episode 21. Let me know what you think is going to happen in part 2 of the duel here between Misawa and Judai, which is going to determine who is going to be the school representative for this year's tournament against the other duel academy. Guys, we're going to finish this off with 5Ds episode 21. I'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the final part of this Legacy review. This is episode 21 of 5D's Vengeful Bomber, Trap of Sorrow, Chariot, Pile. And man, I feel like I really say this every week, but this was definitely the standout episode in this two-parter here. Last week was more of a setup. A lot of deep character development of a character in like Bommer that I really didn't think when he was first introduced that he would be anything important. I thought he'd be more like a Professor Frank, like kind of a seemingly one-off that wouldn't really come back. Wow, what an episode. So guys, we jump into this, picking up off of last week. Yusei was in trouble, as he always is. They remind us once again as the audience that Yusei's friends are missing. They are not around. That is all the Godwin's doing. And Bommer, I mean, his music, the OST in this episode is absolutely amazing throughout. The moments of them going back, and this is a total back and forth duel of them taking shots at each other left and right. Even when Bommer's ace is defeated later, he still has Yusei on the ropes. Yusei's at a disadvantage with speed counters, as he seems to be always in all of these duels, and he's able to make worthwhile and come back from that. It was just a crazy back and forth episode. But yeah, it starts off with Flying Fortress Skyfire. I mean, that was the thing that was wrecking shop on Yusei. It was impossible that if you summoned a monster, the monster was ultimately defeated, and I think you took something like 800 damage automatically. So there was no possible way, it seemed, that you were going to be able to win if that card was on the field, given the current materials that, Yusei wasn't summoning Stardust Dragon over here or something. Like, he needed something to definitely combat this, and the only option really was to destroy it, and I thought it was thoroughly impressive how he did it. So as I said, he's at a disadvantage. He gets spun out. He loses the speed counters, which ultimately hurts him. And now the strategy I'm thinking is, I'm like, well, he's losing all these monsters. He seems to not be caring as much, Yusei, even though he's taking the damage, the 800 damage for summoning any monster onto the field. And I'm like, well, he's got to be adding them to the graveyard to get materials. Like, that thing that Yusei is doing in that moment to ultimately summon some kind of monster that will able to defeat Flying Fortress or be able to attack Bomber directly. And I'm like, I have a limited knowledge, but I'm like racking my brain of like, what could be the idea of what Yusei is trying to do? And so when Yusei uses Speed Warrior, as he sacrifices it, and then he sets a card right after that, I go, but okay, what's the strategy there? Like, he used Speed Warrior, he knew Speed Warrior would be destroyed, so he used that because only the Flying Fortress can only destroy something once, whether it's a set card or an actual monster. So he was able to, much like the Duel Monsters episode this week, where Yugi used a part of the Gate Guardian to defend Black Magician, so ultimately it can only, attack, it can only use one defense once, and then it backfired on Yugi later, when he went to go use that, defended Black Magician again, but Labyrinth Brother attacked. Then, when you can only use that move once per turn, it screws you. Much the same case here that Yusei was banking on that, hey, if he can only use the effect to destroy Speed Warrior now, I can get a set card down that he can't destroy in this turn while it is summoned. And so I'm like, okay, that could work. It's got to be some kind of crazy summoning set card, some kind of trap card or whatever he has to get rid of Flying Fortress, and Bomber reads right through that strategy. The strategy is completely null and void because Bomber goes, all right, well, that's exactly why he did that. It makes complete sense. So I'm going to direct myself to direct attack Yusei, and Yusei is completely flabbergasted. He's thrown off by that moment. He's now forced to use both set cards. He had 2 set cards, Yusei, on his field, and he's forced to use one that, turns on the other one, which then ultimately brings back Speed Warrior one, which then ultimately brings back Speed Warrior, and it backfires his entire plan. Bomber sees completely through it, and when he brings back Speed Warrior, it ends up being just in a quick death again. And I'm like, there's no way Yusei's gonna win, right? He's got plot armor here. We're in the middle of a tournament. He has to get to Jack. He has to awaken his signer abilities. There's no way he's going to be defeated here. But I'm like, man, Bomber he's a terrifying opponent. He's a worthwhile opponent that this is going to be actually really tough for Yusei. And he does what our lovely protagonists do. It's a heart of the cards kind of draw, which we know is kind of part of the game. People have said to me in the comments already. But we get a great callback moment to Rally. And when Rally gave him Turbo Booster, that was the card that ultimately helped him get through the pipeline that got him from Satellite to Neo Domino City. And he now uses that card once again, and kind of the spirit of his friends, the spirit of Rally, to help him to rally into this duel and get back at Bomber. And I thought the episode did a great job of contrasting why Yusei and Bomber fight. You see why Yusei is fighting for people like Rally, for people in Satellite, what he stands up for. Just he's a good person. He stands up for people that he feels are downtrodden and being run over or taken advantage of. I mean, look what he's done with the twins and how well he has taken care of them. And Bommer, in a contrast, in a very similar way, his entire village was destroyed. He lost his younger siblings, and we'll get more to that at the end of the episode. And he fights for those people because Godwin has promised to give funds back to the town if he ends up defeating Yusei and unlocks his signer abilities. And I like when an episode of Yugioh can set this up, or any show can set up, where I can feel for the antagonist, because Bommer's not a villain here, but I can feel for the antagonist. I can feel for the opponent, because Bommer's not a villain here, but I can feel for the antagonist. I can feel for the opponent, if you even want to say, if you don't even want to go as far as antagonist. And that's what I loved in these last couple episodes, is the character development that they really gave Bommer. So Yusei uses a combo of a monster Fortress Warrior and Turbo Booster. He's able to destroy Flying Fortress Skyfire, and now he's looking good, right? Because the effects that you have in this episode, and I mean visual effects of what they did in this episode, were fantastic. When Flying Fortress is blowing up, and it's like a NASCAR car, hitting the side of the wall and God forbid, catching on fire, and everyone's still racing past it, and the spectacle of that, the horrifying spectacle of what is going on, that very much, the animation and the detail they gave in that moment of how horrified Bommer is of losing his monster. I'm wondering, is he going to be at risk to actually, crashing his D-wheel? And it spins out a little bit, much like Yusei did in the beginning of the episode, but I thought that was fun and just continues to impress me, the effects and the animation in the show. It's just next level. But when that happens, and now I go, the way I looked at it is now that the ace of Bommer is destroyed, I didn't look at it as oh, Bommer's done, this is it. I looked at, hey, this is a little bit more fair, that now they're a little bit more on some even playing ground here, even if their life points aren't exact. And I really felt for Bommer because, it kicks back to a cutscene and a flashback right before the tournament where he gets the knowledge from somebody leaked the information, maybe it was someone who had analyzed the actual town that he's from in South America, which I believe is where he's from, and he goes, yeah, the town's gone, they're gone, there's no sign. They say a line of these people are missing, but that's what you always say in tragedies when you don't end up finding a body. But he knows, everyone knows, the audience knows, he knows his siblings are gone, and it's revealed to him that the information, I guess, his siblings are gone, and it's revealed to him that the information, I guess, that Godwin is the one that is behind firebombing his town as a test to try to awake the Crimson Dragon. He sacrificed the town, and I feel everything Godwin does is purposeful. I don't think he just picked this random small town in South America or Central America, wherever it was. He purposely was trying to test it there because he wanted to get Bommer into this tournament, give him an inspiration to get into this tournament because he knew the caliber of duelist that Bommer was. And the back and forth between Yusei and Bommer for the rest of the episode after Flying Fortress is defeated is absolutely incredible. And you have this moment where you have Chariot Pilot is on the field, but it's really also his D-wheel. It's a weird thing that even the twins comment, or maybe it was the twins' friend in the audience, of afterwards when Bommer ultimately is defeated, what happened the other duel monsters normally do. So that is fascinating. I don't know if they meant anything further by that line, but that's something to keep a watch for. But the synchro summons back and forth, you get synchro summons from Yusei, which is exactly what you expect, and then Bommer's oh, well, you think you're the only one with synchro summons, and he synchro summons something onto the field. You get Yusei to synchro summon and attach one synchro summon to another, add the glove, the fist there, that ultimately ends up leading to his victory in armoring arm, attaching it, equipping it to Junk Warrior. I thought all those moments were so good, so well done, and I loved that back and forth between the two of them. When the two synchros combined, an amazing moment of just, it used the attack boosted, it boosted the attack by 1,000, and arms effect, armory arms effect, is taking the damage of attack points of a destroyed monster. And so you're taking and then you're adding that attack, I believe, as a direct attack to Bomber, and that ultimately leads to Yusei winning. So 2 pretty devastating moves by Armory Arm, something I don't think we've seen before. 2 awesome effects that it has, and it was an absolutely incredible moment and an incredible duel. And now the duel wraps up a little bit early. There's about 5 minutes left or so, so I was very fascinated of like, okay, what's going to happen? And now Bomber somehow hacks into the PA system of the entire audience and is able to speak to them, to Yusei, to everyone listening on a TV set, in the stadium, wherever it's broadcasted. And he tells them that Godwin is the one that killed his whole village with the test. And Godwin, he's not even really shaken by it. Like, Jack is like, you know, saying right after Bomber loses, oh, I guess your mission amounted to nothing, how lame, because he wanted to see a little bit more, I guess, fight. And also there was a little bit of a rivalry because he felt disrespected when Bomber completely blocked his punch last episode. But Jack is drawn right back in when he hears Bomber reveal all this stuff and how emotional it is, how truthful it is. And he goes, hey, I was going to reveal all of this at the end when I won, but now I have to make sure this gets out into the public. And Godwin does nothing to stop it. His assistant's freaking out, and he lets it go. He feels so protected inside his own dome, his own, you know, skills, his intelligence, everything, that he feels like he is untouchable. And even this PR disaster that this would be, this horrifying genocidal act, will still not get him to be removed from his position and ultimately upstage his ultimate goal of bringing back Crimson Dragon. But, you know, Bomber, he uses his D-wheel and he goes, he's gonna, you know, ride off the wall. I felt like, for a second, I felt like I was watching Rocket League, and he was gonna crash his D-wheel through Godwin's kind of top chamber in the tower, and he jumps up, crashes into Bomber's D-wheel and stops him, and Bomber is, of course, very upset that, you know, why would you let me do that? And Yusei gives the exact thing that any hero would give and says, you know, hey, if you do that, you're no better than he is. That's not a way to settle things by force. You're no better than him. And when a piece of Bomber's D-wheel comes off, kind of the chariot pile thing that you would have on a chariot in like a gladiatorial arena, it's the spike on the wheel that was supposed to hit into other chariots. It goes right up into Godwin. He looks like he's going to get hit in the face. He stands pat and catches it, and his hand is revealed to be metal. I mean, so is he an android? Is he half robotic? Is that he lost his hand with something, and so it got replaced as a robotic hand, and whatever that experience was, that's why he's on this path to summon Crimson Dragon and work with the signers and Iliaster. I mean, there has to be some connection there to his past of some probably horrific injury or surgery he went under to just set all of these events in motion. But it was just shocking. Everyone was shocked. I was shocked. And the question is, how will someone like Jack react to this revealing moment with Godwin, and how is he going to take that going forward? I mean, at this point, he seems like he is very much trapped, and there's no way of escaping what Godwin wants to do and the plans that he has laid out for everyone. So guys, that's my thoughts here on episode 21 of 5Ds. A great frigging episode. Let me know what you thought of all of that in the comments below. As always, with no spoilers, just as maybe you're watching it with me again, or you're watching it for the first time, or just, you know how to control yourselves down there. I trust you guys. I like to read the comments and participate with you guys down below, so let me continue to be able to do that. Guys, stay tuned. More to the channel here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything. Every single week at usually about 8:30, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we go live with a podcast called 7's Up, which details all of our thoughts in that week's episode of the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Going on, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's. So if that interests you, please check that out. We do that every week. I'm a part of that. It's a lot of fun, and Dylan does a lot of other great videos here on the channel that I hope you guys look forward to. I will be back next week, next Thursday, as these come out every Thursday here on Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything.